Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls, and you're listening to Rainbow Country.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
She is an award-winning documentary filmmaker, an executive producer, writer, and director. She's also one of the founders of Reverie.tv, the first global 24/7 LGBTQ streaming network. Today on Rainbow Country, Wadooah Wali is my special guest. All that and more coming up on episode 280, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, I'm Simone Denny.
Hi, I'm Mayor John Tory.
I'm Joey Lamar, best-selling author of Mambo Lips and Salsa Hips. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT FM in Toronto, the sound of your city, and now proudly in syndication on 11 outlets across Canada. So, whether you're listening in the Yukon, British Columbia, the Prairies, the East Coast of Canada in the Maritimes, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together, we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com. And by the way, last week, Rainbow Country was #2 on Podomatic's gay and lesbian chart. So today, my guest for the hour, Wadooah Wali. She has a background in public relations, as well as being a communication strategist for new and emerging digital media. So, in addition to assisting brands from launch to acquisition to taking companies public, she is also an award-winning documentary filmmaker and entrepreneur. We'll find out about her award-winning documentary, Gaze of the Beholder, as well as Reverie.tv, the first global 24/7 LGBTQ streaming network, and so much more. Plus, as always, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. And on this episode, I'm featuring a 3-song Canadian 80s set, a 3-song trans artist set, and more. But at first, Rainbow Country contributor, activist, historian, and author Tim McCaskill talks about LGBT spousal benefits.
Getting human rights protection was an important step in protecting queer people from discrimination. But what were we supposed to do when the government itself continued to discriminate? When Karen Andrews, a Toronto library worker, attempted to register her partner of 9 years and their 2 children for family coverage under the Ontario Health Insurance Plan in 1986, she was rejected. Hers was not a proper family in the eyes of the law. In the Income Tax Act, spouse was restricted to opposite-sex partners, so people were denied survivor benefits and pensions as well. Although common law relationships between straight people were routinely recognized for benefits purposes, same-sex relationships were not. Relationship recognition could be especially important to lesbian couples who were more likely to be raising children and who still earned significantly less than men. And with AIDS, health insurance and other benefits, not to mention visitation rights in hospitals, were also increasingly important to gay men. Jack Layton, then a city councillor, worked to extend benefits to same-sex partners of city employees in 1988. And the following year, in 1989, the Coalition for Lesbian and Gay Rights in Ontario made relationship recognition a province-wide demand. When Ontario elected its first NDP government in 1990, legislation to include same-sex relationships seemed to be within reach. It was already part of the party platform. CLGRO redoubled its lobbying efforts. The NDP did extend benefits to provincial employees after a human rights complaint by Michael Leshner, but on the question of changing the definition of spouse and extending recognition to couples across the province, the NDP government dragged its feet. It wasn't until 1994, at the very end of its term, that the government finally introduced legislation. But to the surprise of activists, faced with a church-based homophobic campaign whipped up by the Conservative Party in rural areas, the government decided to allow a free vote on the issue. That meant that all NDP MPPs didn't have to vote for the legislation. And the Liberals, once supportive, also flip-flopped, fearing a loss of rural support. The community organized the campaign for Equal Families to try to build support at the last minute, but while strong in major cities like Toronto, it was outnumbered in the suburbs and the countryside. The legislation was defeated. Angry gay activists had to be removed from the Parliament chambers. The police wore latex gloves, presumably to protect themselves from AIDS. It was a betrayal and a major defeat. Gay people abandoned the NDP in droves, contributing to its loss to the Conservatives the following year. It also led to a major change in strategy. People gave up on organizing mass pressure on politicians and turned to the courts instead. It wasn't until 1999 that a Supreme Court decision forced the then Conservative government of Ontario to change the definition of spouse to include same-sex couples. The federal government followed suit the following year in 2000. For Rainbow Country, this is Tim McCaskill, a gay liberation dinosaur from another planet and author of Queer Progress.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Up next, award-winning filmmaker and entrepreneur, Wadooah Wali. Are you ready to have a conversation?
I'm ready. I've got the song playing in my head. Sun is rising. I wasn't kidding when I said that that's one of my favorite songs of all time.
Oh, nice. Bob Marley, Rainbow Country.
Yes.
Wadooah Wali, hi, how are you?
Doing well. How are you today, Mark?
I am well. Thank you for being here to have your voice.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super happy to be here today.
Of course. I want to have your voice be heard by the LGBT community. So thank you for that. Let's start here. Let's start with Tiglaf. the
Yes.
the Tampa International Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. Their most recent festival was in early October 2021. You were a juror and a special guest. Was this at the 2021 festival?
This was, and I was so honored and just happy to be asked to participate in a film festival that meant a lot to me, being somebody who's from Florida and actually lived in Tampa. And that was, before I was doing other bigger film festivals, like whether it was Outfest or Sundance or South by Southwest, et cetera, et cetera. It all started with the Tampa International Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. So to be able to go back as my fully authentic self, not the young scrub that I was when I left, it was just amazing. And I love queer stories. So I'm happy to support that platform and give those creators an audience and an opportunity to have their stories be heard.
So you were a special guest. Were you on a panel? Were you giving a talk at all?
I presented the Emerging Filmmaker Awards for the short Emerging Filmmaker for Short program, which was Gay Dreams, and Brandon. I'm blanking on his last name. I'm so sorry, Brandon, but he was the winner of that, and so I got to present that to the audience and present a nice little check to him, and then. For the feature program, it was Glob Lessons. And so Colin Frober, and unfortunately his producer and director and co-star was not able to join, but he was there. So yeah. And then I watched a lot of movies and scored and was able to participate in the awarding of various films for various categories.
Have you ever been to TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival?
I have, and I loved it. I've only had the opportunity to go once, and this was a couple of years ago when I was working for Warner Media, and I was there on behalf of a program that we were co-chairing with Refinery 29 for emerging female directors. And so it's about storytelling and supporting these filmmakers and especially diverse filmmakers. And it's a part of who I am. And so I love going to all the film festivals.
Mm-hmm. So Derek Horn, who's the director of programming at TIGLIF, he connected the two of us. Yes. So thank you, Derek Horn. And like I said,
shout out to Derek.
Yes. And here you and I are together. Something else that you were a part of recently was the Alliance of Women Directors. It's an initiative, I believe, by TV channel Stars. First of all, this initiative, what's the objective of the Alliance of Women Directors? What's this all about?
So the Alliance of Women Directors is a nonprofit organization that is all about championing female directors. And so their partnership with Stars, and hats off to Stars for starting their #TakeTheLead program. And the point of it was to help surface a female filmmaker who would then go on to direct a Stars series. So it's creating parity in the industry and giving underserved people an opportunity to actually work in their craft in a professional setting. And so I'm not sure what that series was. We weren't told what the series was. It was kind of a blind process in that aspect of it, but it was amazing to be able to watch some of the work of these women, and also they submitted a personal statement, and so you could just hear the passion and just what makes people tick, and so yeah, that was earlier this summer, and so I'm sure they'll be making some noise about it soon, and I can't wait to watch the series.
And you were part of the panel that helped to pick the winner?
Yes, I was one of the jury, the judges. Sorry, I'm getting all my terminology mixed up here. Yes, I was on the judging committee, and so we deliberated over the course of a couple of weeks, and then we pared it down to a smaller pool of folks, and then we judged on a different set of criteria, and then we came together as a group to discuss our top picks and submitted it to STARS and AWD, and they took it from there.
Mm. So 2014, award-winning documentary, Gaze of the Beholder.
Yes.
Probably more relevant today than ever before, especially with everything coming to light when it comes to Facebook and Instagram around body image. Talk to me about your 2014 award-winning documentary, Gaze of the Beholder, and why did you originally create this powerful documentary?
Yeah, that was that little film is like the little film that could. And it's funny, I actually made it in my quote unquote spare time because I was working full time for a startup that I helped take public at the time. So it was, but you know, I should take a step back and say that being a storyteller is just something that's been in my DNA since I was young, and I knew it. And I told my parents that I wanted to write, direct, and produce stories for screens. And they, being practical people from Gainesville, Florida, said, "Do you know how many successful Black female writer, director, producers there are? You're going to be a starving artist. Find another profession." So so that's how I ended up doing PR and a lot of corporate communications. But I never stopped writing, and I never stopped shooting and just documenting things with my camera. And so I never, you know, like at the end, my goal was not to become an award-winning documentary filmmaker. It just was the easier format to do at the time while working full time, as opposed to, you know, taking off a couple months to go shoot. And it was also something I bootstrapped myself. So and so I started thinking about what is a story that I could tell. And I had just moved to just moved to LA from San Francisco, and I just was noticing a lot of emphasis on body, you know, whether it was billboards, whether it was commercials, and I actually had gone through a little bit of a transformation at the time. I lost a little bit of weight, more so for health reasons, but I just really started feeling good about myself, and I think that was really what people were picking up on when I started hearing things like, "You're beautiful," and it's something I never associated with myself. So I was just like, well, what is this? What is beautiful? Because I'm not looking like what's on the billboards. And so I picked up a camera and grabbed a friend, and we just started asking people these questions. And so it just became something that just unfolded over time. And I remember at some point looking at footage and at some of the interviews that I had conducted, and watching it with a friend. I'm like, these are good, but it's missing something. And my friend was like, "Yeah, it's missing you." And I was just like, oh, right. I'm asking people these personal questions about themselves and how they feel about body image. And if I'm going to do this dance and I'm going to tell this story, I got to put myself in it. I got to put a little skin in the game and go through the process with me. So with the development of the film. And so, I look back on it now. I mean, it's still, I look at it and I think about things that I would like to do differently, because it was my first film. And like I said, it was shot over a period of a couple years off and on. But in terms of the content and the story, I'm so proud of it. And it made me almost come out again in a different way. And, we started off talking about showing up at TGLIF as my authentic self. And that was the gateway drug, if you will, to helping me just stand in my truth and say that, I am beautiful. Because the premise of the movie is, if you can't look in the mirror and say that you're beautiful, how can you expect the government or the media or your parents or society or anybody to tell you you're beautiful if you don't know it and believe it yourself?
Yeah, it starts with yourself, doesn't it?
It starts with yourself, and so that was the truth for me, and so that changed everything. And I realized, like in the course of the movie, a lot of people couldn't define the difference between what was beautiful or hot or sexy, and at the end of the day, that the comforting thing, that the bright light that came out of it is that people really do think and believe that it's not what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside. And I love screening the film because I love the conversations that come after. I've had a former football player come up to me, big tough guy, and he said, I struggled for years with my weight, and I didn't think I was going to relate to your movie because I thought it was going to be more for women or for LGBTQ, but it's really a universal topic, and I just feel like the more we can stand in that truth and just look at each other and hold each other as people and see the beautiful beings that we are, then we could overcome so much.
So, best editing of a documentary, Saint-Tropez International Film Festival. What does it mean to you to have this little independent documentary be recognized? What does that mean to you that your film was recognized?
Well,
and has won a number of awards, by the way.
Part of me is like, wow, if that's what I did in my spare time, what could I do if I actually committed to it full time? There's something there. It was such an honor because especially that festival was taking place in the backdrop of Cannes, of the Cannes Film Festival in the south of France. So I got to go to Cannes as well as the Saint-Tropez International Film Festival and stand there amongst filmmakers, and I didn't feel like a poser. I felt like, yeah, I am a filmmaker now, and again, just it got into that film festival. It got into a film festival in Tijuana called Imperfecto Film Festival, and so that was in another international audience. And so I'm glad that the subject just touches people and across cultures and across age groups and across genders, and it just makes us stop and think and maybe hug ourselves a little tighter. So and I know that the best editing, I was working with an editor before who was a good friend of mine, and but for some reason we weren't meeting vision wise, and so I found an editor through just networking, and her name is LaShawn McGee, who's actually one of the co-founders of Reverie. So we kind of, we can come back to that. But, and it was just like magic when we sat down and we worked together, because I would have an idea and then she would see my idea and she's like, okay, that's great. Well, what about this? And so we just, we worked in concert with each other so well, and really brought the warmth and the authenticity and the humanity to the story that I wanted. And I think that's what holds up, like to your point, regardless of, like I said, I look at it now and it's like, I would definitely change I would change the location for the shoot there. I would have, changed the lighting here, all the things that I know now, from having done so many more, produced and directed so many other pieces of content. But in terms of story, in terms of just people being able to drop in and kick back and connect to the story, I'm just, I love the awards. And, but like I said, I really also just love the commentary and being able to talk to people about it.
So the salon scenes, the family scenes, those were some of the funniest and the most touching scenes in your documentary. Were you hesitant at all to have your family be in Gaze of the Beholder?
I knew I asked my mother because I wanted to. Because I talk about her a little bit in the film and how she didn't want me to grow up and be gay, and so all those things kind of play with how you think about yourself and how you carry yourself and move through the world and value yourself. And but and I also wanted people to talk to her so they could see that she's who she is. But also because she represents the older generation. And so I wanted to make sure that the older generation had a voice and a narrative and could talk about about the same things that we struggle with. So she talks about walking with a cane, or on her days when her health isn't doing so well that, she walks and, people might think that she's drunk, but she's really vertigo or something, you know what I mean? And so hearing her share her story, I think was very important to the entire film. And I was so happy that she was so willing to do it. The outer liar was my younger sister. She just happened to be in the, where we were shooting and just listening and to the interview. And so when we wrapped with my mother, she said, I'll be in it too. And my sister, I love her to death. And she is somebody that has really struggled with just, coming into her own and owning her own beauty. And so for her, one, to volunteer willingly to be a part of it, I jumped on it. And then two, she surprised the heck out of me with her answer. I thought because she's two things that she's struggled with and is very self-conscious about are her height and the twins, her boobs. and so I gave her the choice, and a lot of these questions I was asking on the fly because I wasn't ready, prepared to interview her. I didn't think I was going to do that. And so I asked her, if you had the option, would you want to be taller or would you want smaller boobs? And, she said neither, because she didn't think she would know who that person was. And she didn't think that person would be any happier. So, and her height and her breasts are part of who she is. And she's content with that. So I was like, okay, no fairy godmother is going to, she doesn't want a fairy godmother to change anything about herself. So I thought that was truly the most powerful moments in the film, and something I just was so proud of her and blown away. And yeah, she became my hero.
So your documentary features kids, features doctors, celebrities like Carson Daly, professional athletes like Olympian and soccer player, by the way, who played for Team Canada, Katrina LeBlanc.
Yes, yes. And I got to travel with Team Canada to the Olympics in 2012. We hit it off. So she was like, yeah, do you want to go with us? 'Cause you're still shooting. And I was like, yeah, I'll get some pickup footage and right off the trip, for tax reasons. And,
so you went to the Olympics?
I went to the Olympics. I did. And
amazing.
We followed we followed them around to all the different pitches during the course of the Olympics. So don't recall much of the other sports because I was just in it for Team Canada.
And on that note, we will return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi, everyone. This is Mark Tewksbury, Olympic champion, leader, humanitarian. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
So as you know, Rainbow Country is heard on 11 outlets across Canada. And I wanted to take this time to say thank you. Thank you for listening, for tuning in, for downloading. I know I say this in the opening, but I don't think it could be said enough. It's because of you that this show, Rainbow Country, is now Canada's #2 LGBT podcast. So, I wanted to thank you, and I also wanted to take this time to let you know what's coming up over the next few weeks. So on the next episode, as well as repeated the following week, is my Donna Summer, I'm a Rainbow 2-hour special. An episode on her lost 1981 album, I'm a Rainbow, recorded in 1981, but then shelved, but then released on CD in 1996. So in 2021, 10 tracks have been remixed and reimagined. And next week I'll be chatting with DJ, remixer, producer, and artist, Ladies on Mars, who produced a number of tracks on 2021's I'm a Rainbow, Recovered, and Recolored, as well as Michael Needus, Global Commercial Manager for Demon Music Group Limited, who released Donna Summer's I'm a Rainbow, Recovered, and Recolored. So, as you may know, Donna Summer passed away on May 17th, 2012 from lung cancer. That being said, we will hear from the Queen of Disco, the First Lady of Love, the Q of D herself. That coming up next week and repeated the following week. And on January 4th, my special guest will be none other than Martha and the Muffins. You know that Canadian classic, Echo Beach? They'll be my guest for the hour, January 4th. All that coming up right here on Rainbow Country. So make sure you are dialed in, you are tuned in, or you're downloading the podcast.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us. And of course our artists and the things that we do globally, and talk about culture. And without people like Mark Tara providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
I'm Brian Bradley, author of Outrageous Misfits, female impersonator Craig Russell and his wife Lori Russellidi. You are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
So the guests that you have on, they talk about body image, the good, the bad. With everything happening today surrounding body image when it comes to social media, have you thought about doing a follow-up to Gaze of the Beholder?
I have, and especially because, to your point, it still holds up today. So my film was actually screened at a little film festival that took place in Cancun in May of this year. And again, this is a movie that was done in 2020, actually shot through 2012 through 2014. And people still love it. And so, just coming out of that film festival, and it's been something that I think about from time to time. I'm like, do I develop curriculum for it so that I can go and maybe tour some colleges and some high schools and maybe go to some women's shelters? And but now it's coming out of, like I said, that film festival. I was like, well, I think everything could be updated. I think that we could basically evolve the conversation from where it was, and maybe check on a couple people, but definitely branch out and find more people to talk about this topic. And I think it would be very interesting to see and hear from people, how they feel about the same kinds of questions today versus the people that I spoke to almost a decade ago.
Mm-hmm. That'll be fascinating.
So, yes. So to be, it's definitely cooking in the back of my head. So yeah, stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also working on starting to be tapped to work on a couple of other projects. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm just so, grateful that I am this not accidental filmmaker, but because like I said, it's been in my DNA and in my heart, but that it's taken a slightly different path because I didn't go to film school, and I haven't spent years and years of my life doing this, but that it's something that's a part of me, and I get to do it now, and get paid for it on top of that. So it's just a testament to just knowing who you are and knowing your dreams and following them at all costs.
So, Director of Public Communications at Warner Media, HBO, TNT, TBS, True TV. How did you end up as Director of Public Communications at Warner Media? How did this come about for you?
Well, like I said, I did the detour of not, based on my parents' advice of not wanting me to be a starving artist, which I am not now. And so I went to school for communications, and I got my degree in mass communications and almost a minor in speech and rhetoric. And so for the past 20 something years, I've been doing communications and digital strategy and corp comms for startups and other. It started with startups, but how I got to Warner Media was when I moved to LA. I moved to LA to work for a startup, but it was on the at the time when online publishing and online video were just emerging, and that was the the hotness at the time. But it was kind of the sideshow to traditional media, and that was the company. It was started by Richard Rosenblatt, who had just turned around MySpace and sold it to Fox. And so I started working for this company called Demand Media, and it's just through working with Demand that I worked with Google and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, and it just started me on this path of working for different new media companies. So whether it was YouTube companies or podcast companies, they were all spanning these new platforms, and so. I happened to be freelancing at the time. I think we had just launched Reverie, and I was kind of doing the thing of, what do I want to do next? Do I want to make some more content? Do I want to do this? And a recruiter reached out to me because they said that Warner Media had this role in corporate communications, and they really wanted somebody who understood new platforms, because traditional media companies are thinking about, how do we keep our audiences engaged when our programming isn't on the air? And so that includes being able to do something with Conan O'Brien and Team Coco, and launching animated series on Snapchat. And so basically I speak nerd. I found that it's a unique skill set here that I have a background in communications that spans these new platforms that can be pivoted into big traditional media. So that's how I started working there, and it was super cool to be backstage at the magic show and be able to work with the teams on shows that were on air, but also promoting some of the cool things that we were doing off air, like if it was a integration with Facebook Live, or like I said, something with Snapchat or something with Reddit, and just kind of pushing the envelope on what programming is and how you program for audiences beyond a television. So yeah, that was that's how I ended up there. And it's funny too, because a friend of mine from high school, she happened to be visiting with her husband and her daughter, and she reached out to me because she said that her daughter wanted to get into entertainment, and so we set up time to just spend the day together. And I, at the time, because I was working for the company, had drive-on access privileges to the Warner Media, to the Warner Brothers lot. So at some point I had to kind of pinch myself, because I'm like, wow, hot damn, I'm just a girl from Gainesville, Florida. Look at me rolling the golf cart and my friends around like I own the place or something. So, but yeah, no, and I still live in Burbank now. I'm just kind of waiting to see which way the wind blows. But there's just something about being here and being surrounded by, Disney and Universal, and just feeling the energy, the creative vibe in the air. And also, during the pandemic, it didn't hurt to be in the burbs. So it makes sheltering in place with my fur kid a lot easier. But yeah, that was my evolution, my journey to Warner Media.
You mentioned this earlier. The first global 24/7 LGBTQ streaming network, Reverie TV. You are a co-founder. You are the former chief content officer. Talk to me about how Reverie TV, the genesis of this. How did this streaming service come about?
Yeah, so I mentioned LaShawn earlier, but it was another friend of mine, Damian Pelliccioni, and he and I met on a panel, and we were talking. It was like a new media panel, and we just hit it off so well. And at the time, he had a web show called Boys in Tech, and so we just started talking about it. And he's like, "Hey, would you be down to come and be my director and producer? I'm really thinking about ways to reformat the show." And I was like, "Sure, I've got some ideas and would love to open it up. I know it's called Boys in Tech, but it'd be great if we could make it a little bit more inclusive for our rainbow country here." And so we started working together on that. And I had my film that was making its rounds in the film festivals, and I had a meeting with a distributor who was talking about getting my film, my documentary on Netflix and Google and Amazon. And I just, there was something about, putting my little baby out there into the world, and knowing that I didn't have Warner Media money to market it so that it would be found. And it's like, it wasn't enough to me to have, to be bragging rights to say, and you can find my film on Amazon, to the handful of people that I talked to here and there. And I just really started thinking about, we need our own network. And I was such a fan of Logo at the time when it was a gay channel, because it's not anymore. let's be honest. It's it's kind of a dumping ground for old sitcoms now. And but at the time they had the Big Gay Sketch Show, and they had New Now Next, which is where I first saw Lady Gaga. I think they were probably one of the original folks to break her, and some other smaller up and coming LGBT artists. And I was just like, I miss that. I want that. And so then we started talking about, let's start a media company. Let's do this. And I remember we actually tracked down the founder of Logo, and we took a trip to New York, Damien and I, and we met him for breakfast one day, and we just picked his brain, and we said, we have this idea, and what do you think about this? And he was so amazing to give us his time and just be so open. But I think we realized that he was still part of the old guard and the traditional media, and couldn't really understand what we were thinking about. And so really it started off as, let's create this thing as a place where we can house my movie or your web show. And let's make it inclusive, not just in terms of audience, but in terms of the type of content that we can have. Like, why can't we have podcasts? If we're going to create the streaming service that's going to be an app on people's phones, it doesn't matter if you can watch it. Like, people can still watch it, watch a video podcast if they want to on Reverie, but they could also just listen, and take it with them and keep it in their pocket. So then we just, over the course of time, of course, Damien's partner was involved, and then his partner's friend, who's an ally, and they had gone to law school together, so she got involved. And LaShawn, I just pulled in. I was just like, she's amazing. She knows so much. And so that was our ragtag team at the time. And we just started meeting and working nights and weekends and getting together where we could. And we used we also realized that there was no no new media festival for queer content in Hollywood, which is crazy. There's just such an emphasis on the long form entertainment. And so at the time we hatched the plan of, okay, we're going to, create this new festival and we're going to call it Out Web Fest. And we'll use the festival submissions as a means to, to source content. And so, while we were planning and programming for the festival, we were earmarking content that even if it didn't make it into the festival, it's like this creator is interesting. Let's put let's have a conversation with them. So we started working, basically burning the candle at both ends to, put on this festival. I think it was 2 or 3 days at the time, and also getting this app developed and programming content, and we used Out Web Fest as the backdrop to launch Reverie. And so that was our big reveal. That it was like, and great, if you really like this programming, you can find it and more on Reverie.
And how long has Reverie been going?
So I think officially we launched, what was that, in 2015? So it's, I think we did like you said, Out Web Fest, I believe, was 2015. So it's been about 7 years now. Oh, no, what year is it? About 5 years, 6 years now.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
And Reveries is on Apple TV, Samsung Smart TV, Roku, Vizio TV, as well as on Reverie.tv.
On the web you can. It's so, like I said, it's entertainment that is you can take with you and have it in your pocket. So before Quibi was, Quibi that came and went, like we embraced the short form. We embraced web series. We said, bring your web series here. We said,
but Reverie also features like full length movies and documentaries and reality shows. But for me personally, I watch it on Plex TV, which is, a download and acts as an aggregator for your own personal content, like your own, videos that you have and music. And now they have a live TV segment, and Reverie is on there. And that's how I watch Reverie. And I've been, yelling about it over the last few months because that's when I discovered it. I'm like, what? But talk to me about the name Reverie. Why Reverie? Where does that come from?
Well, we tossed around a couple of different names, and it was quite the interesting process. And we were looking at all kinds of different names. I think somebody had come to the table with Polari, which when we looked it up, and he had looked it up and said that it was a term that was associated with gay men back in the early turn of the century or something like that in the UK. And so, but then we settled on Reverie because there was we settled on the name Revelry, which is, is a nice fun word, and it just has positive connotations. And so we're like, okay, well, how do we make revelry and make it sound happy? So we said Reverie. It was like, oh yeah, we got to make it sound happy. Mm. So we shortened Revelry to Reverie.
Okay. So you are part of the LGBT community. I think it's safe to say maybe you are a proud lesbian.
I might be. I mean, I might be a poster child out there. So I was wearing my gay shoes all over Florida and out and proud, which is something that I couldn't do years ago.
And for you, growing up in Florida, in Gainesville, Florida?
Yes, it's Gainesville and then Tampa. Yeah.
What was it like growing up for you? Knowing that you had this same-sex attraction.
Well, at least in Gainesville, I didn't, it wasn't really as much of an issue because the bigger issue was we were raised Muslim. And so when you are a non-Christian in the Bible Belt, I struggled with just fitting in anywhere, whether it was the Black community or, my white classmates. I didn't fit in. My name is Wadooah. And people always had a hard time with it. And the first day of school was always my worst nightmare because the teachers would always butcher it. They would say Wadooah Wali, and I'm just like, you're a teacher. Where are you getting these extra letters from? And the class would erupt in laughter and would tease me about it. They would tease us about what we ate, and like I said, folks in the Black community would say, "Oh, you ain't Black. You don't eat soul food," because as a Muslim, we don't eat shellfish, we don't eat pork. So that means no chitlins, no ham hocks, no collard greens with the ham in it. So it's so that I just really did all that I could to just keep my sanity and push through all of that otherness to get to college. And so when I got to college, that's when I started I'm in a different place. I'm kind of in a safe space, in a bubble, and I started my coming out then. And I was very fortunate that one of the first people that I told, we went to I think it was a Dunkin' Donuts in Tampa, and I just remember I was so nervous, and she was a straight friend, but she was just somebody I love dearly, and I just remember just kind of squirming and working up the courage to say, yeah, and I'm gay. I mean, even though I knew my entire life and had just kind of swallowed it up until that point. And as soon as I said the words, she literally jumped up and hugged me, and she's like, "I'm so happy for you." She's like, "I knew it." And she's like, I'm just so happy you told me. And so that was, I'm so fortunate that I had a positive experience with the first person that I ever actually told and acknowledged that part of myself. And that made it easier for me to do it again and again. I think there was maybe one or two people that didn't take it well. My mother didn't take it well at the time. She was probably one of the last people that I told, even though I know she always knew, because she didn't want me to play sports, because she didn't want me to get muscles and get mannish and all these things that it's like, read between the lines. I don't want you to be a certain way. I want you to be a woman. I want you to be not a woman who likes women. But so that's and I came out, and even I would say up until I was living in LA, again, I think it was my documentary that helped me be okay with just being really out about it, out and proud. And once that happened, I was like, well, there's no going back in the closet. And I think it was around the time I was shooting my film, and like I said, working at this company, and we were launching this new initiative with Tyra Banks at the time. It was called Type F, with F being fashion. And we were at a launch event in New York for her site. And up until that point, I had always gone to my company functions. I would still put myself in a dress and heels. And I always felt like I was in drag. And I never felt comfortable. And so I for that event, I just said, I'm going to take a chance. I had a nice little suit and, bright red shirt, and, which is, I'm not really that kind of a showy person. So all of it just really felt like I was putting myself out on Front Street. And it was when Tyra, she looked over at me and she gave me the up and down look, and she nodded and smiled. And I was just like, oh, okay, I can do this. And the reaction from my coworkers, they were just like, hey, you look great. And I felt so comfortable. And I was just like, why wasn't I doing this before? And so that was, I tossed out any remnants of dress and high heels after that. I don't have them in my closet at all.
No, they're in my closet.
Yes. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, no, I just, it's just like what, and again, just going back to the important role that this movie played, it's just like, how do I feel comfortable? And I think maybe had I not had dresses and this look pushed on me as a young girl, because again, my mother, she said I had to wear a dress or a skirt at least once or twice a week, and she would enforce that. And, and so it just felt like if I did this and I couldn't be myself. And so because I'm not opposed to, I think I would have a different journey with them, but it was just like being able to do that was me stepping into myself. It's my authentic self.
So, Wadooah, my last question for you. You are a producer, you're a writer, you're a director, a filmmaker, an entrepreneur, a storyteller. These are all the things that you are talented at, hats that you wear. But at your core, for you, how do you see you?
Oh my goodness. You saved the best for last. How do I see myself? I see myself as, I definitely see myself as a student of life. I know that's going to sound probably cheesy, but I love to learn things. I know that there's a bunch of things that I don't know. I love new experiences. I have this opportunity now to live my life as I want to live it. And so I want to have as many experiences as possible. And I know that I'm kind of an anomaly in the fact that I am Black, I am a lesbian, I have corporate brain. I say I have mullet brain. It's business in the front and party in the rear, in terms of being able to get things done, but also having the creativity. And so I want to help people understand other people and otherness. And so I think that's, I don't really have a strong thought of who I am, other than I feel like that I'm here to do this work and tell stories that connect people and push boundaries and get us out of our comfort spaces, so that we can live our best lives and hopefully change things for the better, and maybe even do something helpful for the world and for other people. So I know that that's really lofty, but I'm Aquarius, so we're humanitarians, and that's what happens. So that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm grateful for this incredible life that I get to live, and the people in my life that have helped me get here. And that's what I would say about that. Wow. Great question.
Well said. Well said. Wadooah Wali, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the show. And you know what? You are beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Mark. You are beautiful too. Thank you for bringing your light and shining it into the world. Thank you for having this radio show and highlighting LGBT people of the world. You keep being your beautiful self, making your beautiful music. Yes, because I have checked it out on Spotify. And I thank you so much for having me.
By the way, if you'd like to see Wadooah Wali's award-winning documentary, Gaze of the Beholder, you can find it on YouTube. Just search Gaze of the Beholder.
Hi, I'm writer Adam Smith, author of Deep Sniff, A History of Poppers and Queer Futures. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, follow me on socials at Mark Tara Music. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com. Finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, stay well and stay safe.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Terra.